Greetings, everyone. Peace to you all. Welcome to another episode of Praiseworthy Reviews, where we go through video games to see if they're excellent and commendable. Today, we will be reviewing Rhythm Doctor, the rhythm game by Malaysian developer 7th Beat Games. Players play as an unnamed telehealth intern assisting doctors by remotely activating a defibrillator to stabilize the erratic heartbeats of patients, musically and to the beat, of course. As usual, we will be evaluating the game based on 5 criteria: fun factor, educational value, cultural value, spiritual value, and cost. For context, prior to this review, I have played rhythm games like Dance Dance Revolution, and I have finished this game to the credits. Having been in early access for many years, the game runs pretty smoothly, and there were few technical issues for me. So without further ado, let's jump in. The core gameplay mechanic of Rhythm Doctor is actually quite simple. Press spacebar on the 7th beat. Unlike other rhythm games, there is only one button. There is no need to press different buttons corresponding with different notes. Instead, the game goes in an almost completely opposite direction of that idea. Rather than focusing on the main melody or harmonies of the song, Rhythm Doctor focuses firmly on getting the player to slam the spacebar on the beat. As the game progresses, Rhythm Doctor attempts to obscure the visual cues with movement, obstacles, and distractions in order to make the cues less reliable. Later, the game mixes it up by slowly adding more and more complex rhythms, as well as different time signatures and musical techniques. While I was initially skeptical that the game could keep this interesting for more than a few levels in the main campaign, it did manage to retain my interest. Almost every level introduces some new ideas that keep things challenging. Each of the acts culminates in some sort of boss level or even multiple boss levels that combine techniques learned from the levels of that act into one challenging song. The bosses are nothing to sneeze at and are generally what you might expect as stronger examples of the previous levels. Generally speaking, I thought the game was incredibly fun. If I had any complaint, it was this: the game is almost unforgivingly difficult for many people, to the point where it might be kind of unfun for anyone who is not already very experienced in music. It feels a little different than even highly challenging Souls-likes or Metroidvanias, perhaps because there is no comeback mechanic. There is no way to regain health or to make up for weaknesses in one skill by compensating with another. The only way forward is to get good, which may be frustrating for many. On the other hand, there is a similar sense of elation at completing a boss level that many experience when defeating a Souls-like boss, so I'm still going to give the game 5 stars for fun factor. There is quite a bit of educational value in Rhythm Doctor. Since the nurse speaks Mandarin, you can learn to count to 7 in Chinese. Because of the telehealth context, the game includes some medical terminology that could be picked up as factual knowledge. As mentioned earlier, this is one of the hardest rhythm games I have ever played, despite only having one button. Although the game doesn't explicitly teach music theory, which is kind of a shame, it does require players to be able to press the button to a range of challenging musical concepts, like offbeats, irregular time signatures, and even polyrhythms. If the game added even just a few lines of text in the dialogue, or musical terms in the mission names to hint at the ideas that we are learning, I think that could go a long way towards enhancing the educational value. An even greater bonus would be a way to be scaffolded, with the player able to buy hints or being able to look at the sheet music before the song started. Even without those aids, the game does allow you to set the strictness of the beats through easy, normal, and hard settings, as well as slow down or speed up the song, allowing for quite a bit of customization. Overall, due to the way the game disrupts visual cues, I think the game is pretty good at not only forcing you to perform the rhythm, but to do it in a way that internalizes the beat, essentially forcing you to rely on audio cues, or, perhaps more or less obviously, depending on your musical training, to count. Because of these things, I'm going to give Rhythm Doctor 5 stars for educational value. The artistic value of the game is surprisingly strong. The pixel art didn't particularly impress me in the character sprites. I like some of the weirder sprites, but disliked the more normal characters. What really impressed me, however, were the backgrounds of the different stages, with clever attention to detail, such as this scoreboard I really liked from Act 5. The animations for the core gameplay, like the rhythm pulses, the lights for hitting the note perfectly, and the visual cues, are clear and easily understandable. I especially admired how the get, set visual cues are visible from almost anywhere where your attention might be. Also, some of the animations and the tricks done with them, including the use of screen windows, was very clever, and I think the developers did an incredible job of leveraging programming to enhance artistic elements. The music is simply incredible. I was hooked from the very first level, with the catchiness of the samurai techno really getting my head bopping. From there were an astounding number of songs from different genres, a few that I didn't really jive with, but many more which I really enjoyed, or at least appreciated. While there's no traditional voice acting, the game does use sound effects to emulate speaking. I also think that having multiple songs with clear English lyrics does help give the dialogue a little more feeling. The narrative, while generally simple in plot, effectively leverages its hospital setting to bring in a bunch of weird characters and awkward situations. In my opinion, Rhythm Doctor has a lot of touching moments in its character development and has a surprisingly coherent plot. At time of recording, approximately 1 month after its 1.0 launch, Rhythm Doctor is estimated to have sold somewhere between 750 and 850,000 units, but of course this includes its years in early access. Overall, I'm going to assign the game 4 stars for its cultural value. As far as spiritual value is concerned, there is very little negative content in the Rhythm Doctor. There's no nudity or sex, there's no bad language, and there's no violence. There's no alcohol or substance abuse, although it's implied that some of the characters drink too much coffee and suffer from arrhythmia as a result. As far as positive content is concerned, Rhythm Doctor has some sweet moments, portraying different things like finding romantic love and companionship, as well as enduring hardship. While there are a few themes and a significant amount of story for a rhythm game, after careful consideration, I have decided not to do a biblical themes video for this game due to limited analysis opportunities. Even so, I do think there are some positive messages, so overall, I'm going to give Rhythm Doctor 4 stars for spiritual value. The time cost for the game can be dependent on your ability. For the time poor, the main story took me about 15 hours to roll credits, but it can probably be completed in significantly less if you're musically talented or trained. For the time rich, there is substantial additional content in the form of night shift levels, plus some bonus content in the art room, the basement, and even the garden room available after the main campaign. There's also a pixel editor for editing your avatar, level editors for making your own levels, and of course the ability to download custom levels composed by others, which I think is pretty neat. Rhythm Doctor retails for $19.99 USD and can regularly be found at the early access price of $16.99 USD, which I feel is fantastic value. Overall, based on the content value, narrative accessibility, and asking price, I'm going to give the game 5 stars for cost. Rhythm Doctor is an amazing indie game, maybe even a best-in-class kind of situation. It takes a simple concept, pressing a button on the beat, and explores this in intense and widely varying ways, incorporating serious musical concepts to really challenge the player in both breadth and depth. The game goes further than just gameplay though, integrating not just a phenomenal soundtrack needed for a musical game, but ensuring that the visual artistic style was appealing and that the narrative was as moving as the music. This is probably the best rhythm game I have ever played, and probably one of the best things I can say for Rhythm Doctor is that I let my young daughter play the first level, and she loved it, although I imagine she will find later levels significantly more challenging. Based on the criteria discussed in the video, I subjectively assign Rhythm Doctor the rating of Genre Gem.
A+.
That's all I have for you in this video. Bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it. If this video blessed you in some way, please consider watching some of my other videos, subscribing, or sharing with me some of your thoughts in the comments below.